The sound of a rocket ripping through the air close above us jolted me awake and brought me upright in our hole. Kelly was with me. A streak of fluorescent green crossed our line, followed by a red rocket from the other direction. Bugles blared and whistles shrilled down the Sudong Valley. The luminous hands of my watch said 0030. Baker 17 was under attack. A sudden clamor erupted from Hank Kaiser's side of the hill. The eerie chant, "Malin die! Malin die!" issuing from a chorus of Chinese voices. Then the crash of mortars, the boom and concussion of grenades, and the sharp sputter of burp guns. Seconds later, there was the deeper sound of answering Marine rifles and bars, joined by the pounding of our machine guns and the explosion of Marine grenades. The screams of wounded men soon added to the melange of sounds, along with profanities of rage in both languages. Fast forward a little bit, Chinese grenades exploded into the line and their burp guns blazed. The first wave of enemy soldiers rushed in, and forward holes were buried in mounds of quilted uniforms. Clubbing and stabbing, the Chinese surged up the 3rd Platoon's hill. Behind them were left dead Marines and wounded men who cried for the help of their corpsmen. And one of the things that they talk about in here is one of the tactics that the Chinese used is not everyone would even carry a weapon when they would attack. And if you were a guy that wasn't carrying a weapon, you would go attack. And as soon as someone got shot, you would take their weapon and carry on. Dang. So that's how many people they had, number one. They also didn't have, a weapon for every guy. Obviously, they would have given them. But they also said, you know what, here's the plan. But then think about how now light you are. You're not even carrying a weapon. You're not even carrying any ammunition or anything. You're just able to travel. And it's hard for people that have never put on gear. It burdens you down so much. It just makes you slower. And you get used to it, sure. But when you can get as used to it as you want. When you take it off, you feel like Superman. Yeah. So these Koreans the Chinese are feeling like Superman, sneaking up into these positions all quiet. They also had real legit winter gear. At least this group. We're going to run into some groups that didn't have it, but they got these nice quilted uniforms and jackets. So they're just bringing it. They're bringing it. Back to the book. Van Winkle readied the Marines near him for the next Chinese attack, putting his people into recaptured fighting holes. The men stacked Chinese bodies in front of their holes for greater protection. Somebody yelled to Van Winkle that his own shoulder was bleeding. The big sergeant felt his arm and found a Chinese bullet had indeed passed through his shoulder. He didn't care. Nearby, a man on the ground, sobbing and shaking. My buddy. Gooks shot his head clean off. The orange glare of a Chinese grenade illuminated the sobbing Marine. Van Winkle crawled over to the man, grasped his arm, saying, "Come on, kid. Come with me. You'll be all right." He rose from the ground and pulled the kid up with him. Leadership. Going forward a little bit, Archie Van Winkle now found himself on the lower fringes of the Chinese attack. He ignored his wounded shoulder and fired his carbine one-handed. He called for nearby Marines to follow and launched his own attack into the flank of the Chinese who were moving up towards Kaiser. So you got a guy who's wounded, just picking up young Marines, getting them back in the game, firing his rifle with one hand, and leading an attack on the flank of the Chinese that are attacking his buddy. Higher up the hill, Gunny Foster brought Sherman Richter's 2 machine guns from 1st Platoon, and they commenced pounding down Kaiser's slope. Withering fire and exploding grenades, now from both flanks and above, stymied the Chinese attack. There was a series of whistle signals, and the attackers fell back. They crawled over their dead, but pulled their wounded with them as they backed down to the bottom of the hill and into the woods. They were supported by well-directed covering fire, and they held good order as they withdrew. When the Chinese were finally off the hill, the Marines ceased their fire, and both Marines went silent. So the Chinese are also doing cover and move as they leave, as they withdraw